Ryan's office revenge. When that 34-year-old MBA called my Navy background legacy thinking, I almost laughed. Almost. Because guys like Tyler Manning never learn until the ship's already sinking. And by then, the only guy who knows how to stop the leak is long gone. I'm Jack Morrison, 57 years old, and I was sitting in that glass conference room watching Tyler drop buzzwords like digital transformation and AI-driven solutions with all the confidence of someone who'd never seen a real crisis. He was the new COO at Apex Defense Solutions, and he thought he was going to revolutionize everything. Nobody else was smiling. Just Tyler, grinning like he'd invented something important. What he didn't understand was that I wasn't just some old guy shuffling papers. 20 years in the Navy handling classified financial operations, then 16 years at Apex keeping $85 million in defense contracts running smooth. I'd survived 3 CEOs, 2 Pentagon audits, and 1 congressional investigation. I was the guy who made sure we stayed compliant while everyone else worried about their coffee budget. But now Golden Boy with his business school phrases was here to streamline operations. That's corporate speak for firing people you don't understand. And me, the guy who built our government compliance system from nothing, who held the security clearances they bragged about to investors. I wasn't even getting invited to strategy meetings anymore. Week by week, I watched my name disappear from meeting lists. No more Defense Department calls, no more contractor reviews. My role had become invisible until the day it wasn't. The slow-motion disaster started small. My software budget got cut without notice. Some junior analyst was supposed to learn my processes, which meant he spent most days asking where the bathroom was. My quarterly compliance review got canceled, rescheduled, then absorbed into operations planning. I found out when someone's assistant forwarded me a calendar invite with the wrong room number. Then came the workforce optimization. Tyler liked fancy names for laying people off. Whole departments disappeared overnight. The break room got quiet. People stopped putting up family photos. One guy from purchasing just left his coffee mug on his desk and never came back. Still, I kept doing my job. Logged in early, stayed late, kept the audit records clean, made sure nobody accidentally triggered a federal investigation. Because underneath all the corporate talk, my signature was what kept us legal with the Defense Contract Audit Agency, the Pentagon, and 3 other agencies that don't forgive mistakes. I held the security clearances that connected our systems to government databases. I maintained the protocols that caught suspicious payments before they became news headlines. I'd written our export control procedures myself after the last guy nearly got us hit with a $12 million fine. But to Tyler, I was just overhead. Old school. Someone to replace with an offshore team that promised scalable solutions, whatever that meant. He didn't even know what my clearances were for. They weren't company benefits. They were federal authorizations tied personally to me. They were the only reason Apex could handle classified contracts without monthly government inspections. And I was the only one who had them. No backup. No deputy. But Tyler would figure that out soon enough. I wasn't going to stop this train wreck. I was going to sit back and watch it happen. When everything fell apart and people started screaming, "Why didn't anyone warn us?" I'd be long gone. Clearances revoked, walking away clean, and their whole operation crashing behind me. Because sometimes you don't need revenge. You just need to let incompetence show itself. Tyler delivered the news like he was announcing a promotion. "Your position's been outsourced, Jack," right in the middle of his cost-cutting presentation, sandwiched between slides about reducing supplies and jokes about using interns for everything. The room gave nervous laughs, but I didn't react. Not when he waved his hand like he was swatting a bug and said, "We'll be moving your responsibilities to a global partner with modern capabilities." I just reached into my briefcase. He kept talking because guys like him can't handle quiet. "We really appreciate everything you've done, Jack," he continued in that fake friendly tone they teach in management school. "But our external vendor will handle your work starting Monday. It's about efficiency." That's when I put it on the table. My security badge. Black plastic with federal seals none of them could read, attached to a red tag that said, "Classified Access Authorized." It didn't make noise or flash, just sat there with quiet authority like a bomb waiting to go off. The junior staff stopped smiling. The finance director stared at it like it might explode. Tyler laughed. "That's cute. The little badge, is that supposed to be dramatic?" I looked up. "It's not dramatic, it's protocol. Come on." He waved dismissively. "It's just paperwork. We've got people who can handle forms. You made this job look harder than it is." That sealed his fate. I nodded once, the kind of nod you give someone about to step on a landmine. Then I turned to the sweating HR representative and handed her a thumb drive. "Final report," I said simply. "My clearance logs, pending certifications, flagged concerns, and 6 months of classified audit records. You'll want to upload that before my access expires. You've got 30 minutes. The room temperature seemed to drop. Even the legal director, who'd been half listening on speakerphone, came alive and asked, "Wait, what kind of access?" I didn't answer. Just stood up, straightened my jacket, and pushed my chair back under the table like I still cared about the place. Tyler grinned at me with that smug look winners get. "I'm sure we'll manage fine without all the red tape, Jack. This is probably good for you too. Time to enjoy retirement, play some golf." I smiled back, the kind of smile you give someone who just asked a Navy vet if he knows how to handle pressure. "Good luck," I said. "Just don't lose that badge. It's the only one you've got." I walked out with my footsteps echoing down that hallway like a countdown timer. No drama, no shouting match, just a calm exit. Behind me, Tyler was already turning to HR, probably saying something about how I'd be filing for unemployment by Tuesday. What nobody in that room wanted to admit was they had no idea what I actually did. Sure, they knew I handled compliance, but if you asked any of them to explain it, they'd wave at some spreadsheets and mumble about quarterly reports. That badge Tyler just laughed off? It was connected to every security clearance, every classified contract, every government exemption I'd built over 16 years. It wasn't just a piece of plastic, it was the key to everything. And now it was theirs, completely useless and ticking like a time bomb. Saturday morning, I cleaned out my home office, not because I was upset, just habit. 16 years of military discipline means you measure peace by checking off lists. My wife used to joke that I couldn't relax without backup plans and exit strategies for everything. I made coffee and logged into my work terminal one last time. First thing I did was revoke my security access from every system: the Pentagon database, the Defense Contract Audit Agency portal, the classified project files, and Apex's internal security network that I'd personally built using old systems and determination. The computer didn't even ask why. Confirm access revocation for J. Morrison, authority level 7? I clicked yes. Then I disconnected my security tokens, one by one. Multi-factor authentication apps deleted. Hardware keys unplugged. The secure access device I kept in my desk safe went into an envelope and got sealed with tape. By 11 a.m., I was digitally invisible to them. Didn't feel bad about it either. Instead, I opened my old contact book, real paper, leather cover, full of numbers I hadn't called in years. I flipped past former vendors, one useless CEO, and a note about Pentagon Steve. Owes me fishing trip. I stopped at a name written in block letters. Linda M., DCAA Liaison. Emergency only. I picked up my landline. "Linda, It's Jack Morrison. Long pause. Oh no. Please tell me it's not another Friday crisis. No, they outsourced me, said I was outdated, handed my clearances to some offshore company with no security authorization. Linda made a sound like someone had punched her. Jesus, Jack. I've already pulled myself from all active systems. My credentials will show as invalid on Monday morning. Silence on her end. Do I need to check the exemption files? You should. She sighed. Frustrated, but not surprised. You always warned them they didn't understand what they had. They never read the details, I said, drinking coffee. Anyway, just wanted Defense Contract Audit Agency to know when things start falling apart. They won't survive this, Linda said quietly. Not if those exemptions are tied to your personal authorization. They are. 5 years ago, Apex had really screwed up a federal filing. Missed deadlines, submitted wrong contractor information, almost triggered a Pentagon audit that would have killed our defense contracts. Legal panicked. Finance gave up. The COO back then took medical leave from stress. And me? I stayed in the office for 3 days straight, called old contacts in Washington, dug through volumes of regulations, built a compliance solution with military precision and paranoid attention to detail. The result was a special exemption status with yearly renewal, but it came with conditions. It had to be maintained by a federally certified compliance officer with proven security background. Me. My name on the paperwork. My signature authorizing everything. Every year since, I'd quietly renewed it myself. I never told the executives how fragile it all was. Why would I? They treated me like a security system. Install it, ignore it, only notice when alarms go off. But now their security system had logged out for good. I made 2 more calls that day, one to my lawyer for a friendly update, one to a former Pentagon auditor who owed me a favor. Neither call was about revenge. Didn't threaten anybody or make demands. Just made sure they knew Jack Morrison no longer represented Apex Defense Solutions in any legal, regulatory, or security role. Any future attempts to use my signature, authorization, or clearance would be unauthorized. Not a threat, just a fact, delivered with military clarity. That evening, I poured bourbon and opened the windows. Let the cool air in. My phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. Tyler Manning posted, "How modern outsourcing saved us millions." I didn't click on it. Instead, I opened my email, typed 1 sentence, and sent it to 3 government agencies. Subject, security clearance, revocation notification. Body. Effective immediately, I no longer serve as authorized compliance officer for Apex Defense Solutions. Signature, Jack Morrison, CDR USN. Return. No explanations. No complaints. Hit send, closed the laptop, and watched leaves blow across my yard. The quiet wasn't empty. It was loaded with potential. Meanwhile, nobody at Apex was paying attention to what I'd actually done. They were probably celebrating getting rid of the old guy who asked too many questions about procedures. Tyler was likely already planning his next optimization project, but Monday morning was coming, and with it, the first attempts to access systems that no longer recognized anyone at Apex as authorized to use them. The Pentagon databases that would reject their login attempts, the audit systems that would flag missing credentials, the contract portals that would display access denied, valid authorization required. They'd probably think it was just a computer glitch at first. Maybe blame the IT department or assume they needed to reset some passwords. But as hours turned into days, and the error messages kept coming, someone would eventually realize the truth. The system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed, built to require one specific person's authorization for every critical function. That person had designed it that way on purpose, with military-style redundancy and security protocols. And that person was now sitting in his living room, drinking bourbon, completely unreachable. The beautiful thing about good security architecture is that it's supposed to fail safely when key personnel are removed. The system locks down, protects itself, and waits for proper authorization to restore access. I'd built it that way because I understood something Tyler's business school never taught him. Real security isn't about convenience or efficiency. It's about control. And control means having the discipline to make systems that can't be bypassed by people who don't understand them. Tuesday would be interesting. Monday morning hit apex like incoming fire. Stephen Grant, the founder, was in his office by 7 a.m., 2 hours early, and 5 hours before he normally dealt with anyone under 60. Usually he strolled in with coffee and small talk. Today, he marched through the lobby carrying files like they contained his death sentence, didn't stop to chat with anyone. Straight into CEO Daniel Cooper's office. Door slammed hard enough to rattle windows down the hallway and make the new receptionist spill her coffee. By 7:15, Daniel came out holding a printed email like it was radioactive. A few department heads were trickling in. Finance, operations, IT, most still half asleep. They all watched him shuffle toward the conference room like someone had just told him his house was on fire. At 7:20, an emergency alert went out to legal and HR. Subject line, urgent, critical security breach, level red. Level red hadn't been used since 2019. I knew because I'd written that emergency protocol, myself. At 8 a.m., Tyler walked in wearing his usual confident smile and expensive suit. The guy looked like he'd been up since 5 a.m. closing deals. He barely got comfortable in his chair before Stephen exploded. "Explain this." Stephen slammed the email down in front of him. Tyler blinked at it. "Unauthorized security violations," he read out loud. "What does that mean?" "It means," Stephen said through gritted teeth, "the Pentagon sent a certified notice to my house saying our security status is compromised. Our defense contract exemptions are under investigation and our vendor registration has been suspended." Tyler actually laughed. "Come on. It's probably just a computer glitch from when Jack left. Maybe he forgot to sign out properly. You know how these old guys are with technology." Stephen didn't find it funny. Nobody in the room was breathing. Finally, CFO Patrick Phillips spoke up. "Sir, there's more." He turned his laptop toward Stephen, who looked at the screen and went white. "This morning," Patrick said carefully, "our federal contractor portal access was revoked. All of it. We can't log into the Pentagon systems, can't access our audit records, can't retrieve security clearances. The authorization ID on file, Jack's, shows as inactive." Tyler leaned back in his chair, still dismissive. "So we reactivate it. Simple fix." "We can't," Patrick said. His badge wasn't just company property. It was a federally verified security clearance tied to his personal record. He paused. He was our only registered security officer for all classified contracts. The silence was deafening. Stephen slowly turned to Daniel, who was massaging his temples like he had the worst headache of his life. "You're telling me," Daniel said slowly, "he was the only person legally allowed to handle our security filings?" "Yes." "And sign our classified authorizations?" "Yes." "And renew our exemption status?" "Yes." Stephen stood up so fast his chair crashed into the wall. "Why the hell didn't anyone else have clearance?" Legal Director Michelle Bennett finally spoke. She'd survived 2 company takeovers by being brutally honest. "Because Jack told you 2 years ago that getting backup clearance would require 8 months of background checks and federal certification. He brought it up in the Q2 compliance meeting, the one you missed for your golf trip." Tyler threw up his hands. "So what? We're delayed for a day or 2? Just tell the government he's still working here temporarily while we sort it out." Michelle stared at him. "That would be federal fraud." Stephen slammed his fist on the table. "Get him back, now." he resigned. Then call him. We tried. He's not answering. And he already filed official removal papers with the Pentagon, Defense Contract Audit Agency, and Defense Finance. As of 9 a.m. today, Jack Morrison has no connection to Apex Defense Solutions. That's when reality started sinking in. Jack hadn't just quit a job. He'd walked away from a nuclear reactor and taken the only control rods with him. 9:30. They were calling my cell phone, my home phone, even my old desk extension, desperately hoping I'd forgotten to file some paperwork or that maybe I'd come back to help them out of professional courtesy. But I wasn't coming back. This wasn't my problem anymore. Tyler, still refusing to accept reality, said, "Look, we can just tell the agencies he's on temporary leave while we transition responsibilities." Michelle looked at him like he'd suggested robbing a bank. "The Pentagon doesn't recognize temporary leave for security clearances, Tyler." Stephen stared at my old badge, still sitting in a plastic bag on the conference table where I'd left it. For the first time since he'd started Apex in his garage 15 years ago, he looked genuinely scared. Not angry or frustrated. Scared. Because he was finally understanding that they hadn't just lost an employee. They'd lost the one person who kept their entire operation legal. By 10 a.m., the executive team was on their third emergency conference, call of the morning, and the phrase security clearance had been mentioned more times than in the previous 3 years combined. HR was in full panic mode. Someone from recruiting had done a quick LinkedIn search for replacement candidates and printed out 3 profiles, none of which had actual federal clearances, but one had a professional photo with an American flag background. Michelle was trying to control the damage with carefully worded emails full of phrases like, "actively investigating the situation," and "our position remains under review." One nervous junior lawyer suggested that maybe someone from finance could temporarily sign whatever needed signing. Tyler grabbed onto that idea like it was a life preserver. "Exactly! We've got 6 vice presidents in finance. Any of them can handle paperwork." Michelle took off her glasses, which made everyone pay attention because she only did that when delivering bad news. "Listen carefully. You don't sign federal security documents like expense reports. Every signature is legally binding and federally tracked. Jack's clearance wasn't just a company ID card. It was tied to his personal training, his background investigation, and his security record. None of that transfers to other people." "But he worked for us," Tyler said, his voice starting to crack. "We paid his salary, so we should be able to designate someone else to do his job. Not without submitting a formal designation request to 3 different agencies," Michelle said sharply. "That process takes 6 to 8 months. Assuming any of you could actually qualify for the clearance level Jack held, which I seriously doubt." Complete silence fell over the room. The badge sat there on the table like evidence at a crime scene, cold, useless, and somehow accusatory. The first contract cancellation hit right after lunch. Blunt email from a major defense contractor tied to multiple classified projects. Subject line said it all. Immediate suspension, security breach. The message was brutal. Since Jack Morrison was listed as sole security authority for all joint operations, and his clearance is now inactive, we are halting all work and payments until further notice. This constitutes formal breach of contract per Section 4.2. By 2:15, 2 more contractors followed suit. One of them had been negotiating that $85 million extension Tyler kept bragging about. Now their lawyers were calling instead of their project managers. Patrick was dragged into the boardroom like a man walking to his execution. He brought spreadsheets and desperate optimism. "Okay, yes, Jack's departure created some gaps, but we have backup systems for continuity." "Show me," Stephen snapped. Patrick opened his laptop and tried logging into the security portal. Screen froze. Error message popped up. Access denied. Valid clearance required. J. Morrison. He tried again. Same result. Tried the classified contract database. Another rejection. The encrypted vendor files. Nothing worked. From the corner of the room, Anthony Torres spoke up. Quiet security guy most people forgot was even there. Jack's badge wasn't just for building access. It carried digital certificate authority. He was the root administrator for our security logs, contract approval chains, and classified file encryption. Nothing moves in our system without his electronic signature. Stephen turned slowly, like a man watching the ground open under his feet. You're saying he locked us out? No, Anthony said carefully. He didn't lock you out. He just left. The system was built to require his personal authorization. You all approved that design years ago because Jack said it was the only way to guarantee security. He never said he was the only one with access. Actually, he did, Anthony replied. Multiple times. It's all documented in the security architecture files. Patrick, still clicking frantically, pulled up their internal authorization directory. Jack's name showed as grayed out. Everyone else listed as pending approval. A red banner flashed across the top. No active security officer on file. Just then, Patrick's phone rang. He answered and put it on speaker. Defense contractor calling about a routine approval. Yeah, we're trying to finalize the March contract extension, but your approval system keeps rejecting our submission. Says we need Jack Morrison's signature or escalation from a registered officer. Any way around that? Patrick looked around the room. At the error messages, at Stephen's pale face, at Tyler, who was finally starting to understand. Jack no longer works here, Patrick said quietly. Okay, so who handles approvals now? Silence filled the room like poison gas. The call ended with the contractor saying they'd have their legal team reach out for guidance. By 4 p.m., procurement reported 5 major deals stalled. Contracts team confirmed that DocuSign was rejecting 3 classified agreements because they all routed through Jack's federal authorization key. At 4:30, the Department of Defense sent an official warning about Project Delta Echo. Per compliance requirements, removal of designated security officer without immediate replacement constitutes contract breach. Your authorization status has been flagged. We are suspending all classified access effective immediately. Stephen read the letter twice, then stood with his hands pressed against the table like he might flip it over. We can't fix this by tomorrow. Michelle didn't even look up from her laptop. Can't even begin fixing it without system access? Daniel tried one last burst of optimism. Look, we still have options. Maybe we contact Jack, explain the emergency, offer him consulting fees just to restore access temporarily while we sort this out. He's not answering, HR interrupted. We've called every number we have. Even sent someone to his house. Nothing. That's when Anthony delivered the final blow. He pulled up system logs from the weekend. Just so you know, Jack didn't sabotage anything. But he did revoke his access, tokens, disconnect his hardware keys, and wipe his security backups. He looked around the room. There's literally no way back in. One last email arrived at 5:15, from a longtime subcontractor who'd worked with Jack for almost a decade. Subject line, need approval guidance. Body was one sentence. Jack always handled our security certifications, but nobody seems to be available for signatures now. Stephen closed his laptop. For the first time all day, he didn't yell or demand action. He just whispered, "We're finished." 2 days later, I was watering my garden when my phone rang. Stephen Grant's name on the caller ID. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Jack?" His voice sounded exhausted. "Yeah." Long pause. "I won't waste your time. I just need to know one thing." I waited. He took a breath. Did you sabotage our systems? I set down the watering can and smiled, even though he couldn't see it. No, Stephen. I just took my name off them. Click. No threats, no negotiation. Just the truth delivered with the same calm precision I'd used for 16 years. They hadn't been running a company. They'd been running on my reputation, my clearances, my relationships, my knowledge. I was the security framework, the government liaison, the compliance backbone, the institutional memory that kept federal agencies from shutting them down. Tyler thought he could replace all that with an offshore team and some software. But real security isn't about efficiency or cost savings. It's about trust built over decades, knowledge earned through experience, and relationships that can't be outsourced to the lowest bidder. Within a week, Apex's stock dropped 67%. The FBI opened an investigation into their security protocols. 6 board members resigned. Tyler was quietly let go, though they called it pursuing other opportunities. Me? I got job offers from 3 major defense contractors before the month was out. Turns out there aren't many people with my clearance level and track record. Funny how valuable experience becomes when it's gone. I didn't burn Apex down. I just stepped aside and let their own decisions catch up with them. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply allowing incompetence to meet its natural consequences. In the Navy, we learned that discipline and preparation aren't just nice ideas. They're what keep the ship afloat when the storm hits. Tyler had plenty of confidence, but zero preparation for the mission he'd inherited. And in the defense world, there are no participation trophies for trying hard. The truth is, real power in any organization doesn't come from the corner office or the fancy title. It comes from being the person others can't afford to lose. And the moment you become replaceable in their minds, you'd better make sure you're not actually irreplaceable in reality. Because when they finally realize the difference, it's already too late to fix what they broke.